When Lucas was only 5, he made a simple, innocent promise to his preschool friend Mia that one day he'd marry her. It was a playful vow their hearts were too young to fully understand. But as life pulled them in separate directions, fate had other plans. How does a forgotten childhood promise turn into a love story years later? Keep listening to see how one chance encounter brought their story back to where it all began. Do let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel so you never miss an episode like this one. In the heart of Austin, Texas, there was a cheerful preschool where the sounds of children's laughter rang out each day. The schoolyard was alive with bright colors, red and blue playhouses, vibrant swings, and a huge sandbox filled with shovels and buckets. Among the kids, 5-year-old Mia was known as a whirlwind of energy, with bouncy curls framing her joyful, curious face. She had an infectious laugh that seemed to carry on the wind, pulling people in and making everyone around her feel like they were part of her endless adventures. Mia darted from the swings to the jungle gym, laughing and calling out to anyone who would join her. She was fearless, often the first to climb to the highest point on the play structure or jump off the swings at their peak. Her imagination transformed the playground into castles, far-off kingdoms, and bustling cities, and her friends eagerly followed along. All except for one boy, Lucas, who watched her from a distance with quiet fascination. Lucas was the opposite of Mia in almost every way. A soft-spoken boy with deep, thoughtful eyes and a tendency to hold back, he often stood near the edge of the playground, clutching his favorite toy, a tiny, worn T-Rex. Lucas wasn't shy exactly, but he had a quiet soul, preferring to observe rather than participate. He had never really played with other kids, content to stay in his own little world. But Mia's lively spirit tugged at something within him, a feeling he couldn't quite explain. She seemed to sparkle, her presence a beacon of warmth and excitement, and Lucas found himself wanting to be part of whatever world she created. One crisp autumn morning, with the scent of freshly fallen leaves filling the air, Lucas decided to be brave. He tightened his grip on his dinosaur toy, taking a deep breath as he walked over to the sandbox, where Mia was piling up mounds of sand. She noticed him instantly, her big brown eyes lighting up as she flashed him a bright, toothy smile. "Hey, you!" she called, tilting her head in curiosity. "Do you want to help me build a castle?" Lucas nodded, a shy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Wordlessly, he handed her the little T-Rex, a gesture that surprised him as much as it did her. She accepted it with wide eyes, looking down at the small dinosaur, then back at him. "Is he our guard?" Mia asked, placing the toy carefully on top of their sandcastle. Lucas nodded, feeling his heart swell at the idea. From that moment, a bond sparked between them, as natural as breathing. They spent the entire morning working side by side, shaping the sand into turrets and walls, adding moats and tiny pebbles for decorations. The castle wasn't particularly impressive to anyone else, but to them, it was a masterpiece. By the time recess was over, Lucas had found himself laughing and talking in a way he'd never done with anyone before. Their friendship grew quickly, as if they'd known each other for years. They sat together at story time, passing whispered jokes and giggling whenever they got caught. At snack time, Mia would sometimes sneak him an extra cookie, and Lucas would save her a spot on the playground swings. Theirs was an unspoken, unwavering loyalty, one that didn't need grand gestures or promises. It was simply there, a friendship that felt more like family. Then, one sunny afternoon, as they climbed the jungle gym, Mia turned to him with a determined look in her eyes. "One day, I'm going to be a famous artist," she declared, her voice filled with a fierce kind of pride. She stretched her arms out to the sky, as if reaching for her future. Lucas looked at her, impressed by her certainty. After a moment, he nodded, as if sealing her words with his own quiet agreement. "Then I'll be right there with you," he said softly, his voice carrying an intensity beyond his years. Mia looked at him, surprised, and a grin spread across her face. "Well, that's good," she said, "because you're going to be my best friend forever." Without a second thought, Lucas added, "One day I'm going to marry you, Mia." He said it so simply, without any of the nervousness he usually felt, and Maya just giggled in response, wrinkling her nose. "Only if you promise to bring snacks," she laughed, sticking out her pinky finger. Lucas blinked, then lifted his own pinky to meet hers, sealing their innocent promise. They didn't yet understand the weight of the words they'd spoken, or the way that little vow would stay with them, even as the years changed everything around them. But in that moment, their laughter and their promise filled the crisp autumn air, marking the beginning of a bond that would follow them through time, waiting for its chance to blossom. And as they ran off to play, their pinky promise lingered in the quiet, a simple, unbreakable vow that would echo in their hearts long after their childhood days had passed. The final weeks of preschool passed in a blur of games, laughter, and story time. For Mia and Lucas, every day felt precious, though neither of them could have explained why. As they raced around the playground, building castles in the sandbox and giggling at their inside jokes, they didn't yet know that this chapter of their lives was coming to a close. One afternoon, as Mia was packing up her paints and paper, her mother knelt down and shared the news. They'd be moving to Houston in just a few weeks, where Mia would attend a new school that focused on the arts. At first, Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. She loved to paint and create, and her mother promised this new school would have a huge art room filled with everything she could dream of: brushes, colors, and big windows that let in the sun. But as the news settled in, a wave of sadness crept over her. Moving meant leaving Lucas, her best friend and the person who made every day feel like an adventure. She didn't understand why her heart ached at the thought. After all, she was still so young. But she knew something important was slipping away. When Mia told Lucas, he looked at her, his face blank with shock. "You're moving far away?" he asked quietly. She nodded, feeling the sting of tears in her eyes. On their last day of preschool, Lucas brought his favorite toy, a small, battered dinosaur he'd carried around for as long as Mia could remember. The toy was his most treasured possession, and giving it to her was his way of holding on to the memories they shared. He extended it to her, his face solemn. "So you won't forget me," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Mia took the dinosaur, clutching it close to her chest. Her face softened as she promised to keep it forever. Then, as the sun cast long shadows over the playground, they hugged tightly, small arms wrapped around each other in an embrace that held a surprising weight for two children. Neither one wanted to let go, but eventually they did, and with a final wave, they went their separate ways. Life in Houston brought big changes for Mia. Her new school was as wonderful as her mother had promised. The art room felt like a dream come true, with endless supplies of crayons, paint, and paper. The teachers recognized her natural talent, encouraging her creativity and pushing her to try new things. Mia's confidence grew as her artwork became admired by both her classmates and her teachers. She made new friends who shared her love for art, and her days were filled with laughter, paint-splattered hands, and new experiences. Yet, despite all the joy her new life offered, there were quiet moments when she found herself feeling unexpectedly sad. Sometimes she would pull out the toy dinosaur Lucas had given her and hold it tightly, its rough, familiar surface bringing back memories of her first friend. She missed his shy smile and his unwavering loyalty, and she wondered if he missed her too. Meanwhile, back in Austin, Lucas's life was different without Mia. At first, he wandered around the playground alone, his eyes searching for her curly head among the other children, his ears listening for her laugh. But as the days passed, he had to accept that she wasn't coming back. Determined not to feel lonely, Lucas joined the school's science club, where he discovered a passion for building things. He spent hours constructing little bridges and towers, working with the other kids in the club to solve problems and create inventions. His teachers noted his natural aptitude, often telling his parents that he had an engineer's mind. Lucas enjoyed the satisfaction that came from creating something with his own hands, and he even began to dream of designing real machines one day. Still, despite the excitement of science club and new friendships, there was a quiet, persistent emptiness in Lucas's heart. At times, when he looked up from his project, he would catch himself half expecting Mia to appear beside him, ready to paint something magical on whatever he'd built. When he sat alone at recess, he missed her laughter, the way she could turn any moment into an adventure. Even though he was surrounded by friends, no one quite filled the space that Mia had left behind. Both Mia and Lucas grew in their own ways, building new lives and finding new passions. But the memories of each other lingered like the fading pages of a story that had only just begun. Each night, when Lucas lay in bed, he would sometimes wonder if Mia still remembered him. And far away in Houston, Mia often looked at the dinosaur on her nightstand, wondering if Lucas had found someone else to share his adventures. They were young, and the years ahead would blur these memories into a soft, distant ache. But for now, they held on to the pieces of each other they'd left behind: a toy dinosaur, a shared laughter, and the memory of a friendship that had felt like magic. High school was a busy, buzzing world for both Mia and Lucas, each carving out their unique paths. Mia had grown into a passionate artist, known for her bold paintings that captured her creative soul. She spent hours in the art studio, surrounded by paint-streaked canvases and classmates who admired her talent. Her life was full of color and expression, yet there was a small, quiet place within her that often felt unfinished. Lucas, on the other hand, was building a reputation as the science whiz. His knack for engineering had only grown, and he was always tinkering with something, whether it was a science project, a model bridge, or an experiment in his garage. Surrounded by friends who admired his skill and determination, he was happy and confident. But sometimes, he'd catch himself feeling a strange emptiness, like a puzzle missing a single piece. Then one afternoon during junior year, Mia was scrolling through her best friend's contacts, looking for a number. Suddenly, a familiar name stopped her in her tracks: Lucas Anderson. Her heart fluttered with a mix of disbelief and excitement. She hadn't thought of him in years, but in that moment, memories from preschool flooded back. Their time in the sandbox, the dinosaur he'd given her, and his promise to always be her friend. Mia's friend noticed her reaction and, with a knowing smile, explained that Lucas was in her history class. Without hesitating, she offered to reconnect them. Mia hesitated for a beat, feeling a flicker of doubt. Would he even remember her? But curiosity won out, and she nodded. A few hours later, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Lucas. Do you remember me?" Mia stared at the message, a smile spreading across her face. The memories came rushing back as she typed her reply, recalling the quiet, loyal boy who had been her very first friend. They texted back and forth, sharing small stories and snippets of their lives since those early days. With each message, the bond between them rekindled, feeling as natural and effortless as it had back then. Their first meetup was filled with nervous laughter and little bursts of nostalgia. They reminisced about their preschool adventures, recalling the day Lucas had handed her his favorite dinosaur and the sandbox castles they'd built together. Lucas laughed when Mia reminded him of the time he'd promised to marry her, and she could feel her cheeks flush as she teased him about his old shyness. The two of them found that, despite the years and the separate lives they'd lived, the warmth they'd shared had never really faded. What started as old memories slowly turned into new ones. Each conversation felt like a thread pulling them closer, weaving together the years that had separated them. And though neither knew what might come next, they both sensed that fate had just set something in motion. A second chance at a connection they had almost forgotten. As the weeks passed, their connection deepened beyond friendship. Lucas attended Mia's art shows, supporting her dreams as he had all those years ago. In turn, Mia cheered him on at robotics competitions, proud of the boy who had grown into someone capable and confident. One evening, after watching a late movie, they held hands for the first time. The energy between them shifted. They weren't just friends, they were something more. They shared their dreams, their fears, and the little moments they had missed during the years apart. Their friends noticed, as did their families, who recalled the young children once inseparable in preschool. Graduation was a whirlwind of cap tosses, celebratory cheers, and tearful goodbyes. For Mia and Lucas, it was bittersweet. As they clutched their diplomas and exchanged hopeful smiles, the weight of what lay ahead settled between them. Mia was headed to Los Angeles for an arts program she'd dreamed of since childhood, while Lucas would stay in Austin to study engineering at one of the top schools in the state. Their hearts were full of love, but the looming distance cast a shadow on the joy of their achievements. Determined to hold on to what they'd rediscovered, they made a pact: calls every night, letters when they could, and visits during school breaks. Their first few weeks apart were hopeful. Mia would call Lucas after her art classes, excitedly sharing every detail of her projects while he described his engineering assignments and campus life. The laughter flowed, and each conversation felt like a lifeline, bridging the miles between them. But as the semester wore on, the realities of college life began to test their bond. Mia's classes were intense, filled with late nights in the studio and weekend workshops that left her drained. Lucas juggled demanding coursework and a part-time job, often studying into the early hours. Some nights, their calls were cut short by exhaustion, each feeling the frustration of not being able to truly share the other's world. They both felt the ache of missed moments. Lucas couldn't be there to see Mia's first art show, and Mia couldn't cheer him on as he presented his first engineering project. During one of her late-night shifts at the studio, Mia found herself staring at her phone, fingers hovering over his number, wondering if he was feeling the same wariness she did. She dialed, and when he answered, they sat in silence for a few moments, just listening to each other breathe. Neither wanted to say it, but they both wondered, can we really make this work? But in the quiet spaces between words, they found a way to hold on. Each phone call became an anchor, a reminder of the laughter they'd shared, the promises they'd made, and the deep bond that had woven them together. They wrote letters, pouring out thoughts they couldn't quite express over the phone, adding small sketches or pressed flowers, tiny mementos of their separate lives. And on visits, they soaked up every moment together, walks in the park, quiet dinners, and countless hours just talking under the stars. Each goodbye was harder than the last, but each visit rekindled their love, reminding them that they were in this together. The strain didn't disappear, but in time, they learned to bend without breaking. They discovered resilience they hadn't known they possessed, fueled by the depth of their commitment. Every text, every late-night call, and every touchstone of their connection became a testament to the strength of their love, a love forged in childhood, tested by distance, and strengthened by every challenge. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but each parting goodbye came with a promise unspoken yet felt in their hearts. Love like this is worth fighting for. The summer sun was bright and warm as Mia stepped off the plane in Austin, her heart racing with excitement. She was thrilled to be back, though Lucas had kept his plans for the weekend a complete surprise. All he'd told her was to pack for warm weather and wear something comfortable. Curiosity buzzed in her as she wondered what he had up his sleeve. Lucas was waiting at the airport, his face lighting up the moment he saw her. They embraced, and Mia felt a familiar warmth, a sense of peace that only being with him could bring. They laughed and chatted as they drove through Austin, Lucas dodging her questions about the plan with a grin. Finally, they arrived at a quiet neighborhood she instantly recognized. Her old preschool, the small building, had changed over the years, but pieces of their childhood playground still remained. The jungle gym where they dared each other to climb higher was gone, but some of the swings were still there, swaying gently in the breeze. The sandbox, where they'd built countless castles, was overgrown with grass, but Mia could almost see their younger selves, laughing and digging as if the world were their own. Lucas led her through the playground, his hand wrapped around hers, and Mia felt a rush of nostalgia. She turned to him, ready to share a memory, but her breath caught in her throat. Lucas had dropped to one knee, his hand trembling slightly as he reached into his pocket. She could see the emotions in his eyes, nervousness, joy, and love. "Mia," he began, his voice filled with a depth that made her heart flutter. "You've always been more than just my best friend. You've been my rock, my inspiration, my partner in everything. I can't imagine life without you. Since the sandbox, I've known I wanted you by my side forever. Will you marry me?" He held out a delicate ring, a simple but beautiful piece that sparkled in the sunlight. Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she realized the depth of what he was offering. Not just a future, but a love that had been with them through every phase of life. With a trembling voice and a heart full of joy, she said yes. They hugged tightly, laughing and crying, feeling as if they were those kids in the sandbox again, dreaming of big adventures. They had come full circle, their love tested and proven true, ready to face whatever came next together. On a crisp October afternoon in 2022, Mia and Lucas stood hand in hand, facing each other in front of friends and family. The ceremony was set outdoors at a beautiful venue overlooking Austin's scenic hills, the autumn colors painting a perfect backdrop. As Mia walked down the aisle, her gaze locked onto Lucas's, and she felt every step connect the dots of their story, one that began so innocently with sandbox castles and childhood laughter. The guests watched with smiles and tears, knowing that this was not just a marriage of two people, but a union that had been years in the making. When it came time for their vows, Lucas spoke softly, his voice full of emotion. "Mia, from the moment I met you, you made my life brighter. We've built dreams together, from our preschool promises to today. I promise to stand by you, to love you, and to face every adventure life brings us, together." Mia's eyes shimmered with tears as she replied, "Lucas, you've been my first friend, my love, and my home. No matter where life takes us, I'll always be by your side. I love you now and forever." Their first dance was to A Whole New World, the song that had been a favorite from their childhood. The melody floated around them as they moved together, reminiscing about the dreams they had shared as kids and the journey that had brought them here. Guests watched with warmth and smiles, feeling the magic of their connection. After the wedding, Mia and Lucas moved into a cozy apartment in downtown Austin. It was small, but they didn't mind. They filled it with art and books, laughter and love, making it their own little world. The walls held canvases Mia painted, and Lucas's engineering projects took up space in their living room. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Their story didn't end at "I do," it was only the beginning. They knew life would bring challenges, but they also knew they could handle anything as long as they had each other. Together, they'd create new dreams, take on new adventures, and face any storms that came their way. Their love a constant, steady as it had been from the start. Mia and Lucas's story became more than just a love story. It was a testament to the power of friendship, fate, and the enduring strength of promises made in innocence. It proved that some bonds are meant to last a lifetime, and that sometimes a love sparked in childhood can grow into something extraordinary, destined to be cherished forever. But what do you think? Do you believe in promises made from the heart, even those made as children? Could you imagine reconnecting with someone from your past and letting fate lead the way, or would you leave those memories where they are? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.